So, before we go into the show, I have a bit of a clarification. In my previous episode, I got a lot of comments about DSi games and how they are locked regionally. Well, they are. I just didn't mention them because I don't own any DSi games. So please keep that in mind. This isn't an all-knowing list. It's just how I personally import the systems that I personally own. So if I skip over something, it's just because I don't own that system or any import games for it. And since there's only like a handful of DSi games, I didn't mention it. Also, a person mentioned that Pokemon games won't import for the exact same reasons, because of the DSi locking. Let me show you a bit of a magic trick. So, with that out of the way, what are we waiting for? Let's get these systems going with some Japanese games.
Oh yeah!
Alright, let's get to another set of consoles and what import games they offer and how to play them. So here's where we get into needing conversions for these games. You see, Mega Drive games are actually rounded. They have this kind of round area here, whereas Mega Drive games are flat on the back. So what we need to do to play these games is we'll actually need to either get an actual Mega Drive, we'll need to use a converter, or we'll need to widen the Genesis slot. Now, I started with the latter and widened my Genesis doors. All you need is either a file, or a soldering iron, or a hot knife. You only need to remove these two parts to make Genesis games fit inside. Don't feel like carving into your console? Well, just get our old friend the Game Genie and pop it in. Then pop in your import game on the top and play away. Or you can always just get a Genesis 3, since it comes with a widened slot. But this won't fix everything, as there are many Japanese games out there that are locked to the cart. This practice actually started back in 1992. And it's certainly troubling, but it's not a hindrance. The Game Genie suggestion will certainly have a code out there or two for the majority of the region-locked games, which are actually mostly Konami. And if all else fails, Japanese Mega Drive systems are really inexpensive nowadays. The Sega Saturn is a strange duck in that a lot of the games that can be imported are mostly not "you can play this." They're mostly dating sims. The Saturn had a ton of those. But they also had a ton of really superb shooters as well. And playing them is far from a chore. All you need to do is get a special expansion pack and place it into the memory slot on the back of the system. That's all there is to it. It's so easy. There's no chips, there's no tricks, just a special memory pack. So yeah. for the Dreamcast, there's a couple of ways. There's a special boot disk image that you can find on the web fairly easily. You can download it, burn it onto a CD, and use that to help you boot up your games. I mention this because it's not really pirating, because it's not a Sega disk image, and it's kind of like using the freeloader, so feel free to use that. Otherwise, you kind of need a Japanese Dreamcast, and that's what I've actually always used. Dreamcasts can be found really cheap and very easily on the web, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg.
いらっしゃいませお客様。ゲームはいかがですか。ようこそへザ・サムライ店長インポートストア。No Japanese Samurai Tencho English very good. You like robots, you like strategy, you like Gundam. I got Gundam. SD Gundam G Generation F. Play scenario from original Gundam to Tane cities. Cool SD cutscene. Capture enemy mobile suit. Upgrade, combine. The final game in the G Generation series for PS1. これはお金じゃねえぞ。すげえ Okay, I like Wide Away. See you again, Samurai customer.
Okay, this was actually the third system that I started to import from, and it's still one of my favorites. There was a store here in the Colorado Springs area that used to sell import games, and I would spend so much time over there just talking imports and learning new games and learning how to import things. In fact, I remember showing the opening to Final Fantasy VIII to my friends and watching their eyes bug out. Heck, I remember my eyes bugging out from when I first saw that opening movie, and this was before it was released in America. Mostly, I enjoyed playing games that hadn't come out in the US yet, and it was cool to be envied for playing a game first. Final Fantasy VIII, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Monster Farm, and it was just a joy to be able to play import and domestic games too on one system. So how did I play them? With this little gizmo called a Game Shark. Now, there were several different versions made. I've actually got a PlayStation code card here, and this one's obviously not the Game Shark, it's a Game Hunter. But they all did pretty much the same thing, and they tricked the PS1 into thinking that it was playing an American game. You just attach the spring to the door to make the system think that the door was open, stick in an American disc, and then you boot the system. When this disc stops spinning, you switch in your import game, press X, and you play away. But not every disc played. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure actually checked the disc a second time before it ran the credits, and it wouldn't allow you to play it unless you had a Japanese system. Guitar Freaks was much the same way, and many other later games did that too. But for the most part, the Game Shark worked perfectly. And this was about the time that the internet started booming big. So there were even websites that compiled cheats that you could put onto the system. But I eventually got around to just buying a Japanese PS1 off of eBay for the cheap. It's really the best bet. PS2 is a tad more difficult to play import games on, but once you get it, you can play anything. So let's start with a flip-top mod. Now these are easy to put on, but you need to be very careful when doing so. But once you attach them, they play perfectly. Just make sure that the two bits that are attached to the top, once you remove the screws and you start to take it off, carefully jimmy them out, put those onto the same places on the flip-top mod, and then just screw it back on. And the flip-top mod is important to use the next item, Swap Magic. Now this actually comes with two discs, a DVD one and a CD one, because PS2 games were made in the CD and DVD varieties. You can tell what kind of disc your game is if you look on the back of the game case, right here. Alright, we have our import game, we have our flip-top mod, and you have your Swap Magic disc. So, here's how we're going to do this. You're going to place the Swap Magic disc and close the system normally. Then you'll come to this screen. So, use the flip-top and pull out the disc when the disc has stopped. I cannot stress this enough. Then replace it with your import game, making sure to place the game under this little tab in the back here. If you don't, it will scratch your disc. Close the lid, press X, and if the screen turns blue, then hey, it's all good. If it turns red, then there's a problem, and I can't help you. Just try it again. The second way is just to use the hard drive and just pull out all the information from your game and put it onto the hard drive itself. This can be done with a disc called the HD Advance, and what this does is that it allows you to copy games of any region onto your hard drive. You know, the hard drive that you got with Final Fantasy XI? But that's all I'm actually going to say about this, in that it could be used for pirating, for renting games and just burning them onto the disc. And as Mr. Mackey says, pirating's bad, okay? Okay, this is the game system for importing Sony games. Seriously. All you have to do is make a Japanese account for the PSN and you'll be set. Now, I do have a couple of videos out there that talk about how to do that, how to make a Japanese account for your PSN. The initial menus to get everything started haven't changed in all that time, but the menus inside the Japanese PSN store have changed, and that's what I'll tackle here. The Japanese PSN store is fairly similar to the one that we know, but it does have some additional areas that might be different. Your credit card will not work for the Japanese store, however, and so you will need to go to an import store like Play Asia or someplace like that to purchase a Japanese points card. You'll insert the points that you buy into the same area just as you would your normal store, and then the points will be locked for that store. They don't go back and forth. But, just like normal, you can then purchase online games and download them. The nice thing here is that you don't have to be logged into your Japanese account to play your Japanese games. But if you do download a PSP game, then you must make an account for your PSP or use your account for your PSP there and then change your access around. So it does become convoluted when you get into PSP games. I have no experience, however, for the PS Vita. The Japanese PS3 account will allow you access to many PS1 games, as you can see here, and they're all separated into different genres for very easy access. Now I am including the how to make a Japanese PSN account video below this one, or there'll probably be a link below this one, so that you can make an account. It's free to do, and you can download import games from the PS1, PS2, and the PS3. And discs for the PS3 are, save for 1 or 2 games, all region free. Play all you like. And finally, there's the PSP and the PS Vita. Both are region free. So feel free to grab a game and get to playing it on one of these systems. What? What do you mean you don't have any import games? You don't have any import games? Let me tackle that in the next video.
You think that you can play this?